Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Intuitive Catalyst podcast. I'm Leilani, your host, and today we are joined with the brilliant, the very present Cam Rosin. Cam is a thought leader, creator, and plant medicine educator known for making complex ideas accessible. As the host of This Might Be Helpful podcast, he explores neuroscience, ancient philosophy, yoga, and spiritual practices. A meditation and yoga teacher, Cam also educates on medicinal cannabis and offers holistic coaching. Cam's work blends creativity and insight, aiming to empower, inspire, and ultimately return to remembrance. And when I think of Cam, I immediately feel more peaceful. And you'll see what I mean once we get into the episode. He is somebody who not only embodies the present moment, not in perfect ways, of course, but he knows how to get there. He is also able to communicate that with us and allow us into a way of being that amplifies the present moment. I'm so excited to share this episode with you. We went to a lot of different places, places we didn't expect. He's a new father. He's deeply partnered. And these are all things that were not necessarily present for him 2 years ago when we recorded our very first conversation. So it is with the most open heart that I welcome Cam Rosin to the podcast. Hi, Cam. Welcome. Thank you for coming back. You're back on the podcast 2 years later. And first and foremost, folks, just heard a little bit about you. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling excited and eager to explore whatever landscape we get into. And yeah, I think, just before we started recording, we were discussing the last year or two of creativity, or the lack of, I guess, outward expression, but inward exploration, and how that will lead to a greater degree of expression. But boy, oh boy, it's not easy.
No.
It's not a fun experience.
And it's kind of wild because I feel like our listeners, and a lot of like newer listeners, are coming online right now. So they have the opportunity to listen to you 2 years ago, listen to us 2 years ago, and then kind of time warp into who we are today. It's kind of cool. I was watching Interstellar today for like research, and it's just this like time. I know this is my life, right? It's like a time warp that people can experience. So gosh, let's start off with the question that I ask everybody. Cam, who are you? What is your big work in the world? And how do you source from your intuition to complete that work?
Who am I is a dynamic process. Lately, I've been letting go of as much of who I think I am as I can, because the weight of the accumulated self, the collection of patterns and memories of the past, I don't want to hold on to that too tightly, and, be open to what I am becoming. To use some more tangible words, though, I am now a father, which might be it's been wild. It's been wild.
And your baby is 1, is that right?
She is almost 10 months.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so adapting to fatherhood, and then, existing in relativity to that, right? Because who I am, I live in relation to what is around me, what I am doing, who I am with, my role. I'm not sure if I am my roles, but that certainly gives me a pretty tangible, um, marker on the compass. It really helps to calibrate. Okay, I am definitely a father. That is one thing I know. Now, other words that have been used to describe me: nurse, plant medicine worker, educator, writer. a very bad influencer.
Now, do you mean like social media? Where is your bad influence? What is that?
Just I suppose, that's the word that people use to describe anybody that, is using social media as a platform of expression.
Mm,
And I think that word has obvious connotations. Like influencers that are selling protein smoothies and like baked bars. But in terms of that influence, I'm not a I'm not a good influencer in the sense that I'm not on camera all the time. I show very little of my life relatively. Um, and I think, it's using that word influencer as a what kind of power can you actually generate from that? What influence do you want to have on the world? What do you want to bring into the world? I think, and that points to your question, what is your great work? And again, it's something that is still unfolding. Like the
mhm,
direction is there, but I don't know where it's going. All I know is that I want to help people feel more at peace and inspired to create from where they are now.
mm,
You know, there's one thing I would like my creations to do is inspire, motivate, or empower people to make their own.
mm. That is so beautiful. As someone who's been a part of your community, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, you have your own community where you gather folks who are on that similar path. They're wanting to live more into their wholeness, to create from a place of magic that may not exist otherwise. I mean, I'll just fangirl for a sec. Like, you absolutely practice what you preach, and your ability to gather us in a way where we don't lose our individuality and we're able to exist in community and in connection in ways that actually promote our individual pursuits and creativities. It's really beautiful. And I commend you for the work that you're doing. And I'm grateful for it, truly.
Thank you. Thank you. I I'm grateful to have these opportunities, right? Like to be able to have a desire for community and then see that unfold and manifest into a physical reality where that community now exists and it's tangible and real. And that takes time and attention and intention and love. Like a community by definition is not done alone. And so it is this beautiful synergistic effect of all these people coming together to produce this experience greater than what we can produce in isolation. Like we need
Absolutely.
community. We need to create in community, heal in community, and through that, know quite definitively that we are not alone in the trials and tribulations we experience.
Hmm. The first question that's coming up for me, and I'm sure is kind of I draw from the energies of my listeners and the energies that are present. But how has fatherhood, and I believe you got married also.
No, engaged.
Oh, you're engaged. That's right.
Yeah.
I thought I saw something. So, how has becoming engaged, I'm hearing like deeply partnered, how has becoming deeply partnered and becoming a father affected or influenced? Now every time we use that word, we're like, oh, but how has that influenced your existence, your big work? Like what? Yeah.
Fundamentally, um, I think it's fatherhood has really amplified what was already there. The desire to do good for the world, especially now that I have a daughter that will be moving into this great big world. What kind of world do I want to see for my daughter, and how can I play a role in hmm, contributing in my own way to that world?
Mm,
And something I've definitely found is that fatherhood activated instinct,
mm,
and from instinct, the capacity for stronger, healthier boundaries, the
Mm,
ability to say no, uh, partially because the time available is diminished remarkably. And
mhm,
so being really deliberate and thoughtful about how that time is spent and, finding going back to relaxation as this, portal of potency that is very easy when you are, sleep deprived and dysregulated to get caught in the idea that, all right, well, no, I can rest when I earn it.
One of
Yeah.
the biggest fallacies of our 3D existence is that rest is earned. Oof.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's like, I do not show up here to grind away. It's like, how
Mhm.
can I connect to something deeper and move with potency and purpose rather than busy work? And that really is a practice. They're noticing all of these areas where I can kind of trick myself into thinking I'm being productive, like
Mm,
pseudo productivity for the sake of itself because it's 2 p.m. and people are usually working at 2 p.m. It's like, well, is that the life that I'm actually making though?
mm.
I think not. I think if it's 2 p.m. and I feel the work is done, step back and enjoy the fruits of the life that is here right now. Like this present moment is not a stepping stone. It is everything.
Mm.
And parenthood has been this journey to presence. And, that's what kids are as well. They're so firmly grounded here and now. There's nowhere else to be. And that draws you into the only place you can be as well.
They're like their own little wormhole.
Yes, absolutely. A little
Right?
wormhole.
Our little wormholes that bring us to the present moment, whether
Yeah.
you like it or not.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's
Where
so
else would you go?
true.
We're
I
right
mean,
here.
seriously, like there's just this gravity. I mean, again, I was watching Interstellar right before this. It's gravitational pull toward the present moment, right? It's inevitable. It's one of the greatest joys, and also one of the greatest heartaches I've
Mm.
noticed is because, like the other day, I'll just share the story. My son is 6; he's almost 7, and I was just having a shit day. I mean, it was I mean, I say that, but I was tired. There was just a lot of things that didn't quote unquote go right. And here I was, this beautiful little being in the bath, splashing away, having fun, just became my like, okay, I have to control you so that I have some sense of control in my world because I haven't. So I just found myself getting really nitpicky and just kind of like snappy at him. And finally, because I'm very intuitive, I walked away for a second because my guides were like, walk away, just walk away. I walked away, drank a glass of water, came back. And again, my beautiful little boy like brought me into his wormhole of presence, which didn't actually look easeful. I had to sit with the emotion of what's actually underneath this need for me to control my tiny, beautiful little human. And I just started sobbing. And my kid is just looking up at me with his big eyes. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm taking this out on you, but I'm just really sad right now. I'm just super sad. And I don't know why. And I just want you to know that it's never because you're not good. I said, you're a good kid. And you're not the reason that mommy feels sad. And he just like started sobbing. And I was like, Bud, what's going on? And he's like, I don't want you to be sad. Like, Mom. And so it just became this moment where we were, again, it was so fucking messy, but it was this it was this beautiful convergence of the present moment is so imperfect. The present moment is so imperfect. The present moment is so messy. And our children are such catalysts, good, bad, and ugly, for us to be there with them, right? It's so beautiful. And it's also like, ah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. God.
Do you get it?
Uh-huh. It's there's a term I came across. It was is it, yeah, mono no aware, which is a
Mm.
Japanese term translating roughly to the pathos of things, the passing of things. And it's an emotional state where you are aware of the impermanence of it all. And it's almost like a sense of present moment nostalgia, like feeling
Mm.
nostalgic for the present moment because you know it will never happen again. And that Parenthood is full of that.
You're gonna make me cry.
It is this like a gentle sadness at the passing of things while also holding a deep love for being able to witness that transience. And I mean, and seeing your kid grow up, that is the pathos of things. Like it happens so quickly, and everybody says that. But uh, a few months ago, I had a little blob, and now she's like walking and talking and doing stuff. And she's a little person
Right.
with preferences, and she communicates those preferences in a way. It's like, when did you start doing this?
Mm.
When did baby pass into this? And sitting with that, there's so much, yeah, present moment nostalgia where it's an exquisite pain, right? Like it is such a beautiful pain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so good. I again, I'm like sitting here absorb. I don't know why. So the interstellar thing, there's a quote in it that where Coop, like the main character, is talking about having his children. The wife said when they brought home the children, now we're just here to be memories for our kids. We
Ooh.
exist at any, and I just got full goosebumps. Like we exist in this moment with our children, but when we really think about the expansive nature of our existence in their lives, my son is, I know that was a core memory for my son,
Mm.
that
Mm.
moment in the bath. And it's like these are, when we think about the word legacy, before our kids came, my legacy was my, I don't know, I was still in corporate. My legacy was like, okay, creating leaders who are deeply authentic and love, and people who love themselves, and creating wholeness within one another. And then having kids, it's like my legacy is I want to be an energetic imprint that is a positive memory in my son's existence. And also, like, what is the energy that I leave for the rest of the world that surrounds him as the world caretakes for my son after I leave, right? It's just such a beautiful, and I love the exquisite, what did you call it? An exquisite pain.
Mm.
Because at any given moment as parents, we are always navigating the tension between what can we do in this moment to support our children and support the world, and like this moment is so fleeting. Like it's always this tension. Like there's never a moment. I mean, not never, but oftentimes I feel it's difficult to find a moment where I can just exist in that
Mm.
space.
Mm. It's funny that you mentioned this as well because I've been returning to some of the early formative books that I had read. Because each time you go back, you're viewing it from who you are now and
Mm-hmm.
where you are now. And I love it when things hit different, right? And,
Mm-hmm.
the chapters that stood out to you before are not the ones that stand out to you now. And so I've been reading Eckhart Tolle again, and The
Mm.
Power of Now, because
Yes.
I, in the first few pages, I realized kind of how far I had departed from what I knew the last time I had read that book. And the
Mm-hmm.
last time I had read that, it was meditating for maybe a couple hours a day, doing lots of yoga, having a lot, just full focus on me, me. And it was beautiful and expansive. And now returning to it, because I don't have hours to sit in meditation. I don't go to yoga every day. The things I used to cope before are not as accessible as they once were. And so, we got to find new ways, new tools, new avenues back to the present moment. And I realized reading this how many of the air quote problems, blockages, challenges I've been experiencing are actually neutralized and dissolved with deepened presence.
Mm,
And as long as there's some part of me that is anxious, then I am projecting into the future.
mm,
If I am, regretful or there's some kind of non-forgiveness occurring, then some part of me is living in the past. And the creative identities that we merge through and evolve through, again, those are just an accumulation of patterns from the past. And if I think that it's difficult to create right now, it's likely because I'm holding on to so much of what was that I'm not
mm,
open to what is here right now. And so this deepened presence, that's a vertical plane. And it's very easy for us to get kind of stuck on the horizontal plane of space and time. But with the deepened presence, you go beyond space and time because mind needs time to function. And so an overactive mind is fed up with time. It's everywhere except for here. And
mhm,
deepening that presence, coming back to where we are right now. Anything that has and will ever happen will happen now.
mm,
And the more I can draw my attention and awareness to this, ever present now, all of those hurdles and blockages and challenges, they just kind of dissolve and dissipate because they're no longer energized, right? Like thinking about the past just energizes the past. Thinking about the
mm,
future energizes the future. And there's a time to do that. More so energizing the future than the past, I'd say. But ultimately, that energized future will only happen now anyway.
mm. Oof,
Mm.
that's so real. There's so much there. I have said this before, and I believe this is a quote from my book also. Don't quote me on that. But the past is a collection of thoughts and memories. The future is a collection of possibilities. And so the now, the present moment is all that truly exists ever, because everything else is just kind of echoes in both directions, right? And so, if that is true, that means that this moment is the pathway at any given time. This moment is the pathway through which we make decisions, we exercise our free will. Um, and something that you described is like when we give these, any of them, the future, the past, whatever, when we overextend and energizing those energies, then we're taking energy away from this moment, which is where we need to make the choice about who we're going to be, what we're going to do at any given point. Because I don't remember where I heard this, but today it was like, I heard something. I think it may have been on Threads, and somebody had said, "We are what we do." Right? It might be a philosopher or something they were quoting, but all that we are is how we show up and make decisions at any given point. And I mean that kind of in a 3D way, because in the ether, we're much more where
Mm.
we are. I am, right? But in this moment, who we incarnate, who we manifest into is simply what we choose, who we choose to be at any given time. And so if this
Mm.
moment is simply a pathway to that, then how are we spending our precious now?
Spending our
Right?
precious now. Mm. How are we spending our precious now? And that now is the most precious resource, right? Like time is not a resource because we cannot hold on to it any more than we
Mm-mm.
can hold on to the sound of a bird that emerges in the mind for just a brief moment in time. We cannot hold on to these things, but we try. And when we do that, we're resisting the present moment. And that's how we create pain, is by
Mm-hmm.
resisting what is. And by allowing what is, that's how we open the gateless gate. That's how we enter liberation.
Mm.
Liberation is liberation from the accumulated self, the self that accumulates through the passage of time. But we can let go of that, even just temporarily, even just suspending the narrative for a moment, like loosening the grip of the narrative so that we have a little bit more breathing room and we can, explore a new shape. Oh, I haven't made
Mm-hmm.
this shape before. I haven't done this before. And we allow ourselves to do what we've never done, feel what we've never felt, and then become what it is that we are choosing. And making that choice is easier when we suspend that narrative for a moment. It's like, who am I? But can I answer that question without accessing any traces of memory of the past?
Oof.
Because even if I do remember and access a memory, it is confabulatory. We make it up in the
Mm-hmm.
now. And so that memory is always changing too. And so where you are standing in this present moment, that can change the narrative of the past as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like looking at these formative experiences that we've had, things that we say were traumatic or detrimental or um, hurtful. It's like, can I position myself in a way that allows me to see that as a pivotal moment in this character arc, in this journey, that didn't break me. That built me. Like
Mm.
we can change our relationship with the past, and then that changes our experience of the present, which alters the trajectory into the future. But ultimately, all of that power to do so, to influence life on a quantum level, occurs here and now.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. That is so good, Cam. I love when I am in conversation with you, I feel like the wisdom of the masters from whom you've studied is what I'm hearing. Like you have such a beautiful collection of wisdom in your being, um, that you interpret from your own beingness. And so what I am seeing is just this like when I see you talk, when I see you sharing, it feels like this really beautiful symphony of like all of the wisdom that you've gathered, all the connections that you've made, both human and ideologically. And then we get to witness the kind of interpretation of that. And I just am in awe. Like, thank you for all of the ways that you show up for us because it is very profound. And I appreciate that. And I don't know if you're working through receiving praise, but like this podcast is seeming that way. So I appreciate you and thank you for just sharing that.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, you're right. Um, I am working through, I suppose, receiving praise. Usually my default is um, like deflect, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always been like that for as long as I can remember, because I was raised to be thoughtful and have humility and just be who you are without needing to justify who you are, right?
Right.
But
Absolutely.
within that as well is in order to claim your power, you need to own who and what you are as that evolves and changes, but you need to own the space that you're in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use your voice in a way that allows your resonance to come through and
Mm-hmm.
be felt and heard and received by others. And something that a term I came across a few months ago that really stuck with me that I hadn't realized I had been practicing already was John Vervaeke is a professor of cognitive neuroscience on a podcast with Tim Ferriss, and Tim was asking him about how he how John would learn philosophy, and in a philosophical fellowship, which is almost like the Sanskrit word satsang, like sitting in communion with truth. A
Mm.
philosophical fellowship would, a group of people come together and they would read philosophical text very, very slowly with the idea that what they are trying to do is internalize the sage.
Mm.
We're not looking at this as how do we gather information, but how can I allow myself to be transformed by this information?
Oof.
Can I sit with this one sentence by Lao Tzu until I feel what is being said? And then when I feel what is being said, now I'm sitting at the origin of what was said. Instead of engaging with the words here, we're able to peel those words back and sit where the sage was when those words were spoken. And so to approach reading and learning in this way is not how can I gather information in a bunch of pretty sentences, but how can I be transformed by this information? How can I become a open channel for the sage
Mm.
and really internalize that experience, sit where they were. And that's really changed reading for me. It's certainly slowed my reading down.
Yeah. I can only imagine how that has like really allowed you to draw out like being in the energies of the text and being in the energies of the wisdom. It makes me think of Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a book called Big Magic. Have you read Big Magic?
Mm.
Ooh, I know
Yeah, I
it's
think
not,
it's on my desk somewhere.
maybe more modern philosophy, Elizabeth Gilbert, but she is brilliant with this. And it's all about the energy of creativity and how ideas essentially have their own sentience. And she describes this as, she has so many anecdotes in her own creative process. So I don't know if you know Elizabeth Gilbert, she wrote Eat, Pray, Love. That's Elizabeth
Okay.
Gilbert. Yeah.
Yep.
And she wrote this book about like the sentience of ideas and how ideas, just like intuitive nudges, just like energies, just like probably even spiritual presences, they come and they go and they sit with us for a while, but over time the energy, the sentience of our ideas, eventually, if we're not acting on it, will leave and go find another vessel through which to birth itself, right? And so
Mm.
it makes me think, and I just got goosebumps saying that. So it makes me think of these texts that you're with, the masters who wrote them. They essentially honored the sentience of these ideas, ideologies, philosophies. And I've never thought that it were like, I never really considered that it's possible for us to sit with the energy of the sentience of these ideas as well. And you're like internalizing it and you're interpreting it. And then you are creating something brand new from the help of like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the energies of these ideas. It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful, energetic process.
It really is. And it's incredibly invigorating as well, because if you sit with that energy long enough for it to, really infuse through you,
Mhm.
then you can create from that place. Like as a writing practice, to sit with the sage and then internalize the sage to the point where you can be in that vantage point, position yourself in this same state of consciousness from which their words arose, and then see what words come from you. There's
Mhm.
nothing new under the sun, but we all offer our own unique individual expression of these ongoing elements of the experience of life on planet Earth. And ideas do have this sentience because they live in us.
Mhm.
But the way that modern Western schooling has set us up to learn, how we've been taught and conditioned to put value on information, on data,
Mhm.
as opposed to transformation from that data, right? The sensation of that data. When I'm realizing lately in particular that most of the things I thought were blockages were actually areas of my life waiting for me to assume a greater responsibility.
Mm,
That I don't have a money blockage. I was just
mm.
avoiding the responsibility I needed to take in order to make money feel safe and excited to come to me and be with me. That
Stop, Cam.
maybe I didn't have creative blockages. I just wasn't taking responsibility for acting on the ideas I have now. And if I act on the ideas I have now, bigger and better ideas will keep coming to me because they are magnetized to anybody who will give ideas life. And so we give
Mm,
ideas life, but that process has to be something inclusive of the entirety of the being and the body,
mhm,
right? Like the mind is taking complete control of all the information that comes in and complete control of all the information that we search for, then the mind is trying to understand it all based upon a collection of conditions from the past, right? Like the mind can only
mm,
understand what it has already understood,
no,
right? And so if we
mhm,
are interpreting everything through logic or analysis, or does this make sense? It's like novelty is the process of making sense. If it doesn't make sense, that's great because sense making is actually occurring. It's just the mind hasn't caught up yet. The mind shouldn't be leading the process. It should be trailing just behind the heart, right? Like what can the heart move towards? What is a heart magnetized towards? And how can the mind be there as a tool to help make tangible these energies that the heart is so attracted to?
mm. I I am speechless. It's just such a profound concept. And what I was thinking and feeling into is that the sentience of the idea that's being birthed from the other sentient energies that you've already sat with, the sage, right? It needs a fertile place to land. That's what I was feeling into.
Mm,
And that fertile place, it looks to me, it looks like a meadow, and it has to be centering certain conditions. It has to be in the present moment. You cannot create from anywhere but the present moment. There has to be this pathway.
mm,
The conditions have to be met. There has to be an openness, an open heart. Like your heart has to be open for create any creative endeavor to be birthed through you. And you have to be able and willing to like really fuck up.
mm,
I'm feeling
mm,
that big time, like to let go of perfectionism
mm,
because, and I think that that's again, one of the biggest, uh, what is the word? Just like a negative condition, like one of the biggest diseases or disorders of our time is this attachment to perfectionism. And so, how do we create that fertile ground from which this sentient idea, who has a life of its own, can purely find its way through us as a vessel? It's so beautiful.
presence.
Presence.
Again,
It
it's
has
presence
to
because
be.
perfectionism is this it's this essence of kind of competition where it says,
Mhm.
because we're using perfectionism, it's a set of conditions that say how well does what you're making fit with the idea of a perfect thing, which means
Right.
we're already accessing the past.
That are something that probably already exists.
Yep. So we're accessing a set of conditioned patterns from the past, thoughts around what something should be, which means we're already denying ourselves the expansion of newness and freshness. Like if you're making something to be perfect, then we're conforming to our ideas of perfect, which come from the past. And then we're already placing ourselves at the outcome of this thing. So we are both in the past and projecting into the future, denying ourselves presence. And these are, again, these things that keep coming up that I'm realizing don't need to be solved through the mind and almost can't be solved through the
Mm-mm.
mind. But the more we deepen the presence, the more those kind of conditioned ideas of how we should be doing things are allowed to dissolve and dissipate.
I literally saw them just kind of fall away. Like they can't coexist.
I did this little drawing before when you were speaking. of just a bunch of little
Ah,
tendrils, like as if that is us. And
yes.
those tendrils are, that is attention leaving via these, these memory traces of the mind, right? Like that energy is, drifting into the past and sucked off over to that possibility over there, being projected into the future. In presence, there is a gathering of energy and accumulation as we withdraw it from what isn't into what is here and now.
Mm,
And when we do that, when we gather and aggregate our attention and energy to this present moment, and then we open up to notice what is here and now, that to me is this incredible portal to creative presence, because intuition itself is this dialogue between ourselves and the greater universe around us. But that dialogue, it has to go both ways, right? Stuff has to come in, because intuition is a subconscious response to what you notice. And the
mm,
more you notice, the more your intuition has to respond to. The more you
mm,
notice, the deeper your dialogue is. Like that, the intuitive person is always noticing things. Like, how are you going to trust your intuition if you're not noticing how it comes up, right? Like, I thinking about the languages of intuition recently, and how how it manifests for each of us, right? Like, we all have different sensitivities and um, kind of tendencies, biases. I am very audio based. I'm very sensitive to noise. I hear a lot of my intuition, right? Like, it's a people walking by me in the street, a little snippet of a conversation that answers a question that was on my mind,
wow.
or some lyrics in a song that go, oh my goodness, that's exactly what I'm experiencing. I forgot. Like, I notice the sounds because that is a very strong component of my intuitive language. Other people might see the signs, right? Like a sticker on a telephone pole, or a poster in a shop window, or the way that just that one tree is bent at an angle away from all of the others. And that right there is telling me that I'm on the right path, on my path. And so
Mm,
the more we notice these things, it's both noticing and then allowing this beautiful storytelling to come from that, right? Like, that is what astrology is. It's there are these great cycles and rhythms and cosmic mechanics. And then we apply stories to that, because
mm.
we exist in relativity to those cosmos. But then we can shape our experience by adding a little zhuzh, right? Like,
A
because
little
I believe in astrology. It's
yes.
like, you are a storyteller, though. Get better at storytelling, because
Mm,
your capacity to weave meaning and purpose and beauty out of and into this experience is what makes this so beautiful.
mm. I'm just feeling more and more convinced the longer that I live that the meaning, the purpose of it all is simply to interpret and express.
Mm.
Like for us to just be able to interpret our experience, to be able to kind of sit with it, and then to just be the most authentic expression in that moment, which is a collection of our and everything that's happening in the present moment and how we're interpreting the energies around us. It's fascinating. And so my question to you then is, because a lot of listeners are probably like, okay, my mind is blown. And they're like, okay, but where do I start? Because I know that there's going to be a lot of listeners who are like, I want to be on that level. I want to be on that plane. I want to be deeply present, but they are still in this the energy that I'm feeling for some of the listeners is this like dissonance, like this
Mm.
discord, right? They're
Mm.
not in the place of like harmony and zen that you exude by existing. And so what do you want to share with them? What is coming through your heart space as they are trying to find their way out of this discord and to catch their breath.
Mm. The beautiful thing about presence is that as soon as you become aware that you haven't been present, you are present.
It's kind of amazing.
Like it
It's
doesn't have to
true.
be hard, right? The
Mhm.
practice is a continual returning to where you are. And if you don't like where you are, acknowledge that. That's okay. The the pain and the friction of living out of alignment is exactly what we need to come into alignment.
Mm,
All of the pain and all of the friction, all of the hurt and the dissonance is needed. It is
mhm,
showing you what isn't for you. And so pay attention to the things that hurt because they're all waypoints pointing you in the direction of what will feel good. And it doesn't need to be complicated. My main prerogative, truly, is feeling good because when you feel good, when you focus on what feels good, the good in your life expands. And there is no shortage of good. There is no shortage of good. And anytime you think there is, or you don't deserve it, or that you need to earn your rest, or that there are too many people relying on you, you can't make this kind of pivot now. It's like these are all erroneous beliefs. These are all thought patterns that should be challenged. And once you really do challenge them, you find that there's not really much substance behind them. Most of these are social rules that can be broken. And so you got to break rules. You got to break your own rules, got to break the
mm,
rules that have been set for you. And as you continue to do that and live with a little more audacity and choose what it is you want to experience, choose what it is you want to bring into this world and who you want to be in this world, it starts with that choice, right? The choice to reclaim your agenda. Because if you don't claim your agenda, the world will give you one. And if you don't like what you're doing, you have three options from where I'm standing. And like say it's um, career wise. If you hate what you're doing, and I use that word very sparingly, but there are lots of people that do actually hate what they're doing. Option number one is to continue hating it and just, you know, submit to the agenda of others and, spiral a little deeper into resentment and bitterness and watch the heart close.
mm,
Option number two is to decide to derive more meaning and purpose from what you are already doing. Decide that no, this corporate structure doesn't get to decide how I show up and how I perceive it. I can perceive all of the skills that I'm learning, all of the data that I'm accumulating, all of the experience and insight and connections, and all of these things are valuable and necessary for the journey ahead. Option number three is to really own your shit. Do
get
something.
out, get the fuck out.
Get the fuck out, dude. Like, do something radical.
Yes.
Just because things are normal doesn't mean they're not insane. Plenty of things that are normal are truly insane. Like the idea that you are beholden to any structure, any entity, any
Mm,
way of living that does not feel right to you. Don't take on other people's definition of normal if it doesn't feel right for you. Like again, normal. It's a collection of patterns from the past that don't have any tangible basis in this present moment any more than the basis you give them, right? Like withdrawing the belief, the attention, the truthfulness from these structures so that you can mm, live in a way that really makes your heart feel alive, right?
mm.
Like what feels good, you should be focusing on that. And you don't have to change your career. You don't have to make, crazy changes, but, acting on positive impulses. Like you see a little sign for pottery club on a Tuesday afternoon. I've always wanted to make pottery, but the kids are at home and Daryl gets home from work late and there's just not time for me. It's like, no, 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 no. Claim it, decide it, choose to make it happen. choose to make it
Mhm.
happen. And it can happen. You can go to your pottery and you can meet the people there. And then, oh my goodness, turns out I really love working with my hands. I love creating physical art forms. I love the sense of depth and presence and flow that I can enter when I am just focusing on creating for the sake of creation. Right? The more you can lean into those things, you don't have to figure out the whole journey. You don't have to figure out what you're doing, your 5, 10, 15-year plan. It's like, what feels good today, this week? What are you going
What's
to do?
what is so beautiful about that specific example is I think that what a lot of people who are afraid to do the thing, I think that the mindset that they often, because I can say this because this is where I was too at one point, we find ourselves in the mindset that we can't. And then there's like no more discussion, there's no heart discussion around it. But the
Mm.
moment we decide, I can do this, the energies that surround us conspire to make it so. That pottery class, maybe there's a babysitter next door who's been dying to like make a little extra money and take your kid off your hands, right? Like it's incredible the way the energy works because the moment we decide it is so, it is so. And I know that's oversimplifying and I know there's a lot of factors at play, but what if you lived your life that way?
Yeah.
What if you just decided when I choose to honor my audacious, I wrote it down, my audacious self who is radically aligned to my soul and my heart, when I make choices from that space, and maybe it's just one choice a day, then the universe, the energies that surround me then conspire to make it so. Like, how would that change your life? Like, I feel like that would have changed my life.
Fundamentally,
4 years ago,
it
that would have
does
changed my
change
life.
it.
It
Massively
has
changes
to.
it. I and like if you're getting stuck in the how, you've gone too
Mhm.
far. You've departed from the present moment, right?
Right.
Like, well, but how am I possibly going to do these things? It's like, you're just deciding what. You're deciding who. The how will make itself known as you take each step. An example, the beginning of the year, my daughter was just a couple of months old, and I said, I'm going to travel the world with my family, and I'm going to do that by hosting retreats around the world.
Mm.
That is what I'm going to do. And I had no plans to do it this year. Like it was just a seed that I planted. I wrote it down on the poster on my wall. I said, this is what I'm going to do because I want my daughter to experience as much as I can possibly facilitate for her, because that is meaningful for me and important. That is a value of mine. And a couple weeks later, my yoga mentor Jay said, "Hey man, you want to go do a retreat in Peru next year in 2025?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do that. Let's go to Peru next year." And then a couple weeks later, we were having a conversation at the studio, and one of the students overheard us and said, "Well, why don't you just do it this year?" And we looked at each
Ooh.
other. I was like, "Huh? Why don't we do it this year?" And I had no real reason not to. And so we did that. I launched an idea, right? I am all about getting into the deep end. We pretty much chose like the most challenging retreat I could possibly organize for the first time around. It's like, let's meet in the remote Peruvian Andes, going on a
Wow.
mystical psychedelic pilgrimage. Um, and bit by bit, you just work it out. Bit by bit, you do what needs to be done today, and it continues to inform itself. And as you continue setting attention towards it, all of these cooperative components keep emerging. I was like, oh, how am I going to find you know, a shaman that I trust and that feels right for this, from where I am now? Because you don't just like Google shamans
Yeah.
Peru. It's like that's not a question that is really fruitful. But I just trusted. I was like, I know that the right person will emerge at the right time. Just like when the student is ready, the master appears. So too does the shaman. And all of these things just kept unfolding and unfolding, and in this really effortless way. And now we're going to Peru next week.
Ah, congratulations. Oh my
Thank you.
gosh. What a beautiful, beautiful testament to honoring the sentience of our ideas, being the vessel through which they are birthed, to listen, like you said, the yoga student who was just like, why not now? Listening to our intuition. And I often hear from God, source, the universe when I start to get into the how, because I love being in control sometimes. And when I start to veer off into that space, the universe is like, it's a little arrogant that you think you can do my work. Like, this is my work. Like, how arrogant is, and of course they tell me that jokingly, it's cheeky, but how arrogant of us to think that we, as these limited and limitless 3D human meat sacks, to throw back to our first conversation, that we would know the how when the energies are here to support our how, right? It's so silly. And you're doing it.
Just the intention, right? Intention mobilizes creative energy.
Yes. Mm.
When I was on a walk yesterday, and just doing a little walking meditation. I wasn't moving my legs. There was the intention to move. And then I was just the witness to that movement. Like, I'm not thinking left foot, right foot, recruit muscle fibers in this leg, activate quadriceps, heel down, toes down, lift. No, I just had the intention to walk. And then there was walking. Walking was occurring, and I was aware of that walking. The stronger your intention, the more we mobilize all of ourselves. We harmonize subconscious activity to be in alignment with that conscious intention. We are collaborating with all of ourself. That's what you need. And you don't need to, know that intention right now. Like, these things build and generate, and you get insight and revelation, and that strengthens intention. But the intention to have fun today, right? The intention to be loving, be patient, be peaceful. These are powerful ways to bring yourself into alignment in this present moment and allow that to inform your next step. It starts with where you are now.
It's pure presence. I mean, that's all it is. Oh, Cam, I could talk to you for 23 more hours, but somehow we're out of time. I'm like, how did this happen? The last, second to last technically question is, what's your bumper sticker, Cam? Like, what is the one piece of wisdom that you would post all over the world if you could?
Not to beat a present horse, but breathe in, breathe out, be present.
Easy. Easier said than done, but easy. I would buy that sticker. I'd put that everywhere.
I would as well. Maybe we should make that.
I know, it's time for merch. Oh,
so
Cam.
If you're stuck in traffic, have you considered taking a deep breath, sir? Like, fuck
you
yourself. How about that?
I can only imagine you trying to talk someone down in traffic. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh, what a gift. So inevitably people will want to know how to find you. Drop your handles, and it'll be in the show notes, but tell us where we can find you. You
can find me on the gram at Cam Rosin. My podcast, This Might Be Helpful. And if you are interested in exploring the community, we meet up every single week, creator club, meditations, journaling sessions, a place of togetherness for those of us that are maybe the black sheep, or the creative, the visionaries, the outcasts coming together. Turns out that we're not outcasts. We just needed to be cast out to the right place. Website camrosin.io.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Cam. I am just forever in gratitude of the community that you've created, of just who you are. I'm not going to say anything that you do, who you are, the way you are, who you exist as, the person who is witnessing all that you are. I appreciate you so much. And thank you for sharing yourself with us today.
I appreciate you. Thank you for holding this this beautiful space, and for seeing the parts of me that I can sometimes lose sight of.
Thank you.
Thank
so
you.
much,
And I see
Cam.
you, and I appreciate you, and I'm excited to see what's coming for both of us.
I agree. I can't wait. It's going to be great. I know it. So thank you. And hopefully see you again on our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay. Oh my gosh, y'all. Thank you so much for being here for this conversation. It was so beautiful to share the space with Cam. And one of my favorite takeaways, I think, is this exploration of the sentience of ideas and our ability to be pure vessels for ideas to flow through us. The other piece that I'm really sitting with is, what would it look like? This was kind of toward the end of our conversation, right? What would it look like for us to really begin to explore what it means to every day, maybe once a day, maybe a few times a day, to make choices that are deeply audacious and also honor the call, the spirit of our heart, of our soul, that are in deep alignment with who we are authentically on a soul level. If we were able to make those choices multiple times a day, how would that change our lives? How would that change your life? I just thank you again for being here today. Again, you can find all of Cam's information in the show notes. But for now, be still, my friends, and live into your impact. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'll talk with you soon.